Okay. I'll let
Oh, Green line string.
thank you for calling. I'm so
And
sorry.
see, when I talked, it moved to me.
I'm so
Well, they
sorry.
normally would do that when the green bar. you mean.
No, thank
Yeah.
you. What's your name? Ed. Okay, thank you, Ed.
Okay, we're live.
Okay, let's go. All right, so welcome, everybody. Welcome to the May meeting of the Hudson 7. We'll start with the normal introductions here in terms of the prologue for getting involved. Thank you for joining the Hudson 7 Drinking Waters Council. This is a hybrid meeting. Today is Thursday, May 18th. Time is 5:05. So my name is Gary Bassett. I'm the mayor of the village of Rhinebeck and also chair of the Hudson 7. Since this is a hybrid meeting, we have to have an in-person component of our meeting. That the hybrid meeting occurs at the Poughkeepsie Water Treatment Plant here at 3431 North Road in Poughkeepsie. Public comment is allowed for both in-person and remote. Masks are not required, but recommended if you so desire when in person. The Hudson 7's meetings are recorded and streamed live on our YouTube channel page. And link to that page can be found on our website at www.hudson7.org. The video of all meetings and minutes are available to the public on the Hudson 7's website. If a member of the public would like to participate during the public comment section of our virtual meeting, please review our procedures for public or written comments on our website. Hudson 7 council members, those who are remote, you have control over your own mute button. Your good practice would be to mute yourself if you're not speaking to avoid background noise and feedback. When you wish to speak, raise your hand and I will call on you. Before you speak, please state your name and municipality for our audio listeners and for the tape thereafter. Okay, moving forward. So attendance tonight, we do not have a quorum as of yet, but sitting in the room with me is Dottie Noble, technical advisor or chemical, myself, Gary Bassett, Lynn Ruggiero from Hyde Park, Shannon Harris from the town of Esopus, and Randy Olstadt, city of Poughkeepsie. On screen, I'll start in the upper right corner as I see him. It's Russ Gilmore, town of Lloyd. Emily Swenson, technical advisor. Rebecca Martin, our coordinator. Devin, I forget your last name.
Rogerio.
Yeah, help me out, Devin.
Rigolino.
Rigolino, that's it,
Better.
yes.
Thank
I knew it
you.
was- Yes, from Dutchess County. We have John Liscombe on a boat, on the Riverkeeper boat, I hope that is, and Dan Shapley, also remote, Mike Fornag, and Grant Yang from Department of Health. Okay, so we're gonna move forward. We will not be able to vote on anything this evening, but we'll try to get through the agenda and move forward, and somebody comes, maybe we can go back. So first is.
Gary?
Yes,
Gary?
Rob.
Yeah, listen, I'm 10 minutes away, but the problem is I got to cross the bridge. Should I try to cross over so you guys can have a quorum?
Yes, please.
It can take 20 to 40 minutes to get there, but I can get there so you
I
can
have
vote.
a little picture of what the traffic looks like. Hold on, let me just.
Jay Baisley's scheduled to be.
All right,
here.
Shannon.
I got someone's message saying they're
It's
on their way.
moving, but
It's gonna take you every bit of a half hour.
To an hour.
Well, I'm happy to do it if you need me.
it
Well,
only took me a half hour and I'm coming further from him.
Yeah, but you were a little bit earlier than him.
Russ, yes.
Yes?
I don't know what it's like that way.
Yes,
All right.
And if you could call in and listen and we'll make your champ. Thanks.
I'll get there as soon as I can.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye,
Bye.
thank you.
Wow.
So we're gonna skip the minutes. We'll come back to that
Okay.
if
Can
we
I say
can.
something about the minutes before?
Yes.
Without voting on? I found that at least based on my experience with minutes, that they're too detailed. They should be more concise. For legality reasons, we're all held to what we said. And unless you're going to check with the tape, you don't know. Like, for example, I can't vote for what I said because I don't think I said it that way. And I don't have time to go back and listen to 2 hours on tape.
Right.
So I think they should be more concise.
That's a good point, a good discussion, because I know in the village, we've condensed our minutes down, so it's action item, it's the resolution, who voted first and second and the results. You don't have to put the dialogue in there. That's
Right.
not part of the
Right.
discussion, and part of the minutes.
We can do it that way, of course. Yeah. Thank you, Lynn.
Yeah, so Rebecca, you and I can work on that. That's a good suggestion. Nick Butler just joined us from Town of His Opus as well. All right. So do you want to get into communications, Rebecca, please?
Yeah, there's only one, and it's just
Yep.
that the final capital projects budget bill. The past includes $500,000 for the Clean Water Infrastructure Act. That brings New York's total investment to clean water to $500 million. Sorry, $5 billion.
5 billion.
2017. I don't know, Dan, if you want to say more about that. That is not an item you put on. It just came through, so I added it. But if there's anything else to say about that.
Well, just that this coupled with the Bond Act, coupled with the federal
500 million
bipartisan
this year.
infrastructure law means this is the golden hour for municipal water infrastructure. So if you're not already planning projects, plan them quick because there's more money in the next couple of years than there has been in a long time, and it won't be here probably forever. That's all.
I'll just make a comment too. I just came from a NICOM conference. There was a session from EFC on all of the grants, and everybody in that room was applying. So FYI, if you got a project, push it forward. Okay. Public comment. I must have an older version because I don't have Lee's comment.
Yeah.
I have John Lisco.
Yeah, so this came in a few days ago. The new items on the agenda are highlighted. That's why I'm showing on the screen. And the full letter is in your source materials. But Lee Go from Conley wrote, in general, as the Hudson 7 ever utilized or called for an existing or future studies of radionuclides in the Hudson drinking water source towns regarding Blackstone subsidiary TDI Chippy LLC's transmission cable. How will the Hudson 7 be responding to TDI's request to amend condition 162 of the certificate of environmental compatibility and public need? And why did the Hudson 7 never insist on third-party testing for the jet plowing toxins in the river? That's all that's come in, Gary.
That's waste from the
Indian
Indian
Point.
plant.
Radium.
Radium stuff that they're dumping in the water. There's a plan to dump that back in the water. They want to dump it in the river, and there's concern that it could cause problems by doing that. And there's concern whether it would reach the facilities. And the overall consensus is that it is very unlikely because of the distance.
So you have a memorializing resolution on the tritium releases that you're going to discuss later.
In the packet. We have one.
Okay. As far as that, the Hudson never insisted on, we had third party third party lab do the work on that testing we did. So that was not done by TDI. TDI paid it.
Norman Doe, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Move on. Hudson 7 priorities. The first is the Hudson 7 coordinator position. Just to remind everybody, what we talked about last month was the plan to kind of go forward as an interim step for the Hudson 7 to set up a checking account and then send out invoices and then bill people. Devin, I know you've been working with Rebecca a little bit on this. The way I understand it and the way I thought we were proceeding was we would always have to amend our bylaws to have a treasurer position. That has to happen. And then we can appoint a treasurer, and then we can get a TIN number and set up set up account. Is that correct, Evan?
Yeah, certainly we have to do a bylaw amendment. There's some additional details that need to be worked out and voted upon as well, or at least a consensus and agreement by the Hudson 7 membership. And a lot of that I think should be could be spoken to by our legal consultant once we have them under contract. I mean, there's additional decisions that have to be made other than just deciding if you want a treasurer. You have to actually collectively choose a bank. You have to choose who the treasurer is going to be. There's a lot of other steps as well. But again, Ian should be able to advise us on all that to make sure it's being done in a legal way.
Right. So you have the contract from Ian, right?
So we have prepared a agreement to enter for the Hudson 7, the county, only because we are the ones that are administering the funds, and Mackey, Butts, and Whalen. We sent it over to Ian for him to review, but not sign yet, because we cannot enter into an agreement until we have the necessary W-9 and insurance certificates. Mackey, Butts, and Whalen did supply us with a professional liability proof certificate, but we still have not received general commercial liability or workers' compensation. So at this time, we are not able to enter into an agreement, and we are not, even if we did sign the agreement, we would not be able to actually send them any money and issue any payments because we don't have a W-9 for them on file. So really, it's as quickly as Mackey, Butts, and Whalen can react and can get us what we need. This is the #1 priority for our legal office right now. So we will respond as soon as we receive these things.
I'm going to
Can I
interrupt.
just interject? Is that Jay?
Yeah,
Yeah.
can you call Russ and tell him? to
I'm
turn
calling him
around?
right now.
Thank you. Thanks, Jay. You made a quorum.
The text was on my way.
We thought that was
Texted
you.
me, but I didn't have you on my phone. I wasn't sure, but I thought it was probably you.
Okay, I'm going to back up real quick then to the minutes. The minutes as they are written. Now that we have a quorum with Jay Baisley from the town of Poughkeepsie joining us, I'd like to make a motion to accept the minutes as they were written. I have a second. Randy, second. Any discussion?
I abstain.
Yeah, Devin?
So I don't know if, Rebecca, I should have checked with you. I don't know if they were, I did have a request for a revision. I don't know if they were revised, but there was just one part where
I did
had-
revise it.
you did. Okay, then I'm good then. I just haven't received the revised one. I'm good.
Okay, all right. I'm going to call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
I mean, I-
Harry, I'm sorry, could you approve those with Devin's amendment? And I'll make sure that that's
Well, you said
noted.
it was revised, so everybody should have.
It
the
was, but
revised.
you didn't see it, so it's just a small thing, but I want just that to be noted on the record, please.
All right, I'll amend the motion to approve with the comments and revision made by Devin from Dutchess County.
Thank you.
Second,
Who seconded? I think Jay second, so he has to second it.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. We're on the Hudson 7 priority. So I'm going to get back to that real quick. So basically, we're on hold until we can get this language worked out with the attorney, correct?
Yes, but I do think it wouldn't hurt if we just took 5-10 minutes right now to review what I think are the steps ahead of us for the rest of this year in terms of the protection coordinator position, because I do think there's been some side conversations that I've been having, and I just want to make sure everyone's on the same page, and that way there's no surprises when we get to each step. So
Yeah,
does
sure.
that sound okay?
Yeah, go for it.
I would also, so I'm going to just kind of go through, this is conversations I've had with Gary, with Rebecca, with our county attorney's office. So I'm just going to review what our understanding is for a path ahead right now. And then if everyone, and obviously there's discussion, but if everyone agrees on this, it might even be beneficial to just vote on the proposed path forward. So first, again, we do need to secure and execute this contract with Mackey, Butts, and Whalen. I mentioned that a draft agreement is floating around. I do want to just say again for the record that no services can be rendered, no payments can be made until we have a contract in place. We have now received 2 invoices from Mackey, Butts, and Whalen, and again, we cannot pay those. We are able to backdate, so we are going to start the contract the day after the day after our March meeting. So March 16th, this council voted to select Mackey, Butts, and Whalen as their legal consultant. So we can start the contract the next day. So that's fine. We all should also vote on if we as a council want to collectively review and approve each invoice that's received before forwarding to the county, or if we want to defer that ability to just the chair so that he can review. The county cannot receive the invoices directly, and Rebecca cannot receive them. It has to go to the council or the chair. So then after review and approval, then they would be sent to the county to actually issue payment, but it's not up to the county to determine if the work was done accordingly or not. It's up to this council. And then I just also want to remind everyone that it's $19,999 that's been allocated for legal consultation. And I can tell you based on the invoices we've already received, this money is going to go quickly. So we need to be very mindful about the conversations we have with the legal consultant and make sure that we're not burning through that cash too fast. So that's step one, is securing this contract with Mackey, Butts and Whalen. So second, once that contract's in place, they will then advise the Hudson 7 on the proper process required to amend the council's bylaws. That would include provisions to appoint a treasurer, allow us to get a tax identification number, and open a bank account. There are additional small details in there that I'm not aware of. I'm not an attorney, but again, Ian should be able to speak to all that. He should be able to craft the bylaw language and everything, so it's a simple vote for everyone. Once that's done, once that process is clarified by Mackey, Butts and Whalen, we will then vote to amend the bylaws. And again, we need to not only create a treasurer, but we need to identify who that individual is going to be. We need to determine if there's a certain bank that we want to use, if there's any conflicts of interest between any members and any certain banks. We have to have that conversation as well. We also need to figure out what positions of the council are going to be authorized to make transactions, whether that's just the treasurer, just the chairman, or both. Those types of conversations have to be had. Again, Ian should be able to advise on all of that. Once the bylaws are amended, we can then open a bank account. After the bank account is open, and once Ian determines that the Hudson 7 is legally ready, we can then vote to proceed with having the individual members transfer funds to this new Hudson 7 bank account solely for the purposes, again, of hiring a protection coordinator, whether that be a staff or a consultant. That money can only be used for protection coordinator staffing support. And then as a reminder, the amounts that will be transferred, we will all have to have a conversation and get an agreed upon prorated amount. It won't be the full amounts that were annually allocated. It's a prorated amount since we're starting this off halfway through the year. And then moving forward, we will also have to annually make future votes every time we want to transfer over the remaining funds for subsequent years up until the 3 years funding allocation is exhausted. So that's step one, to get us some kind of staffing support through a consultant that can hopefully happen within the next few months. Longer term, we will still continue to work with Mackey, Butts and Whalen to determine what the final process is going to be, what the final format of this council will be, whether that be a 501c3 or some other type of entity. So Ian will still continue to advise beyond just getting us this bank account opened. Once we determine that we are happy with that process and Ian helps us walk through that transition to that 501c3 or whatever that is, we will then have to go begin the process of hiring out a formal or final coordinator. Again, whether that's, we want to continue with a contractor or we want to actually get a member of a staff employed by a nonprofit. So that would have to be another vote and likely another amendment to some bylaws and things like that as we transition over. Again, Ian should be able to advise us all of that. And then I think that's it. By then you're good. By then we have our staffing done, and then we can start to look at future funding mechanisms beyond just the member support, whether that's some kind of tax that's or user fee, whether that's fundraising, whether that's grant opportunities, things like that. So that's how I see it based on conversations I've had with Gary, with Rebecca, with Linda from the county attorney's office. I want to open it up. Does anyone have any concerns or questions about that sort of trajectory over the next 12 months or so?
No, thank you for that comprehensive overview.
Of course. I think we're all eager to see this happen, right? It's been way before my time with the council. I know you guys have been working towards getting some kind of formalized support. So unfortunately, we're all governments. We know nothing is quick. We know everything is complicated, but this is the fastest path forward I see to get us that consultant, that contractor type support that's needed here.
All right, thank you, Devin. No questions? Okay. We're gonna move on. Grant, you're gonna give us
Well,
an
would
update?
you, sorry, Gary, would you feel comfortable if I made a motion to approve this path forward? So that way we have it on the record that this is the intended path?
I would be very comfortable with that.
Can I make a motion to do everything that I just said, or do I have to actually say it again?
No.
It's been recorded.
Great.
Second.
So that's my motion. Great.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, very good. Thanks, Devin.
So,
One quick question, if I may. Devin, is what's slowing down the legal contract insurance? Is that where we are? It's just a simple matter before the contract is signed with Mackey Butts, or is there more to it?
So we sent out the draft agreement to Ian. He is hopefully looking it over now. The only thing on the county prepared it. So as far as the county is concerned, it's fine. We just need the insurance waivers or insurance certificates, and we need that W-9 number in order to be able to process payments. I don't know if Mackey, Butts, and Whalen are going to review the agreement and say, well, we have a concern about this item or that item. Assuming that they're fine with it, it's as simple as soon as we get those a few forms, we can sign. And I will make sure that the county expedites it, so it's really quick. It doesn't have to go through our legislature or anything, so it should be relatively quick on our end.
Thank you.
Okay,
Do we want to appoint someone to transition as far as approving things and getting the numbers done? Like you talked about approving a treasurer down the road, but do we need someone on the committee on the Hudson 7 to take step right now before to move on? Seems like we might.
we need to amend the bylaws to
Yeah,
do
but-
all of that and then
right.
vote on the bylaws. And then
Okay.
and the bylaws will include the appointment of a treasurer.
Okay. All right.
So if anybody in the back of their mind thinks they have an idea about how to set up a treasurer, who wants to be treasurer,
Right.
I would employ you all to think about that process, right, in terms of going forward. So
Mhm.
we can have an offline discussion about all of this stuff, but we just can't move forward on it.
For now, as we move through this, the contact's going to be Devin. And would it be you also? As far
For-
as just to make sure things are moving and getting the answers out that people need to know to keep moving, so things don't stop.
Well, Randy, along the line, what you said is Devin, if I'm not mistaken, said, we need somebody who's gonna be able to approve the bills when they come through, and we don't have a treasurer.
Right.
Like Devin had asked if it would be the chair or the board. We can do it. I would be comfortable either way, either Gary approving it or bring it to every monthly board meeting and approve it till we find a treasurer and get it in the bylaws, because as Devin said, once Ian looks at that, it's not gonna be long. Because it's not that slow, I deal with them all the time, so.
So in terms of the legal bills you're talking about, right, Devin, that are the first step?
Yeah, so for example, we received 2 different invoices so far, and they're itemized. They talk about what the individual has done or what Ian has done. I think that it would make sense if there was a point person, whether that's you, Gary, or someone else designated on the board, where Ian knows to email those invoices to you. You review them, you can take them back to the council and we can all review them if you want, or you can just review them and then you would send them, in this case, I guess to me, since I'm the contact for the county, and then I would make sure that they get paid. But if, for example, I receive an invoice and it says, on April 12th, I had an hour call with Gary, I don't know if that's true or not. I would want you to review that so that way that we have confirmation that we're paying for what we're actually getting. Not to say that they would do that, but you got to review your invoices.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, thank you for that, but I'm kind of more comfortable with letting the board see everything as well.
I think it should be sent to Gary and bring it to the board.
Yeah,
Yeah, that works.
That's great. I agree.
Great. So I'll make sure then that as invoices come in, that they're shared out with Rebecca so that she can put them in the source material, so that way the whole council can review them prior to each meeting.
yeah. So you're still going to have them sent directly to you, though?
I would like, my preference would be actually that they get sent to you. Right now, they're sent to Rebecca, but I think that they should be sent to you, Gary.
Well, they're sent to the Hudson 7 and then they
Oh,
can
to the
be
Hudson 7.
distributed. Yeah. And so we could do it that way. I've been forwarding them to you, Devin, but this is good. So we can bring them all and put them all into the source materials for June.
Right,
Great.
okay.
And Gary would be, Gary and Jay and maybe the executive team, Gary, Jay and Shannon would see them and approve them, or
Well, we said, Rebecca, we said we were gonna bring them to the council. So we'll review them at a meeting.
very good.
We'll just go through them all here. I want everybody to see them. I don't, that's my preference.
I guess
Great.
I thought I meant to see them, to review them, and then to be able to discuss them at the meeting. But we'll just put them in the source materials packet.
Okay. Very good. Any other discussion on that process?
So one last thing I will mention, and I don't know if this is something that would be desirable for this group or not. If we are able to, in an ideal world, which we don't live in, but if in an ideal world we're able to get this contract executed next week or the following week, I think at that point, if Ian is able to really quickly say, here's exactly what you need, A, B, and C, and I can open a bank account for you, would we be opposed to convening, if schedules align, an emergency meeting to make that vote so he can go off and open that bank account? Or do we want to wait until mid to late June to make that vote?
My preference would be to schedule a meeting and get everybody together, so we can move it along. Does anybody
Okay,
have
so
an
if-
objection to that? Schedule it rather than waiting a month
Right, that's good.
to process it.
Do we have to have a certain part of us in person for that?
It's the same as this. It's a regular meeting.
Okay,
It's just called for a special purpose, but.
sure.
And it could just be for that one vote and then the meeting's over.
Right.
Okay.
All
You
right,
could
so we'll do that. We'll
coordinate
do
it on
that.
the 31st for your 5-year anniversary, your amendment of bylaws.
Wouldn't that be
Hmm.
something? If we could get it that quickly?
I'm hoping we can, but we'll see. I just wanted to throw that out there in case that we do move fast. I don't want our meeting schedule to hold us up.
Right. All right, anything else? Grant, you're up.
All right, so to break the news, tomorrow is my last day with the New York State Department of Health. While they work on backfilling my position, Mike Forging and Noreen Gallagher, Mike Forging is on the call, and Noreen Gallagher will be taking over the Hudson 7 DWSP 2. As we had a quick discussion, so we had like a very quick impromptu discussion with some of the subcommittee earlier this week. Trying to figure out like how best to hand off and make sure there's continuity on things, right? So where we left off last month was discussing the some of the potential contaminant sources that were identified in the the Hudson 7 region, and then trying to solicit some feedback. I don't believe any feedback has been sent my way. If it has, I apologize about that. You will have to resend it. But let me provide the contact information for Mike and Nora to Rebecca. So that there's continuity and that the project goes on beyond my time. With that in mind, it has been an absolute pleasure to work with you folks, and I would like to bring up the idea of perhaps, because I do have a great deal of institutional knowledge, and I do care about the Hudson 7 and the success of the Hudson 7, as well as the planner project. If venturing the possibility of me perhaps staying on and staying engaged in some manner, I don't know if in the same manner as a what is it, technical advisor. If that's a possibility. But right, I would like to stay engaged. And that is my update effectively. So, again, I will send contact information for Mike and Nora to Rebecca to disseminate to the Hudson 7. Any feedback on things discussed and presented last month? Greatly appreciated. But those will go to Mike and Nora.
Any up, you guys read, I don't know who, Randy, I know, Randy, not Randy, I'm looking at Randy, but thinking Dan. Dan, I know you had the discussion. Any updates on that short meeting that you can add to what Grant said?
No, I think the only other thing is Mike is gonna schedule a meeting, a real meeting where we'll dig back into the details. That's number one. Number two, just to reinforce that ultimately we'll want each municipality to approve the plan. So the feedback that Grant's talking about, is to make sure that everybody's here is familiar with the plan as it's being developed, so that you can either brief other members of your town or be prepared to do so that that approval hopefully goes smoothly when eventually it comes. And then finally, I think Grant's offer to stay on as an advisor is a good one that I would recommend you consider, either as a specifically for the remainder of the DWSB2 process, or in general as a ongoing to assist with that planning, because like you said, he does have a lot of institutional knowledge now, and he can bring some perspectives maybe as an independent person that he hasn't been able to even bring as an agency representative.
Oh,
I would just like to thank Grant for all the work he's done for us. And I know that he and I have had conversations on other things. And I think Grant was really one of the key people that got the health department involved in a lot of our issues. So I would really like to thank him, and I hope he can continue working with us.
does anybody object if I bring up the issue in terms of adding Grant as a technical advisor?
No.
Given the work that Paul and Dan and I have experienced and Randy experienced in the technical committee, I'd like to make a motion to add Grant as a technical advisor to continue working with us on our team with the DWSB2 especially.
Second.
Any discussion on that?
Nope.
Questions?
I'm very happy to add Grant, and I'm kind of shocked by his announcement.
Change.
I take it wasn't a planned departure?
He's going to EPA.
Okay,
Yeah, he's got another job.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
He's moving
Oh,
on.
yeah, no, sorry, I should have clarified that I'm taking a new position.
It's a good move.
Okay, good.
All right, all in favor of appointing Grant Jang as the technical advisor to the Hudson 7, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All
Can I
right,
ask for the record?
guess what?
Can I ask for the record the title of his expertise for the website?
My
So-
current title, or?
Well, no, so for example, Emily is a technical advisor for land use. Paul is a technical advisor for engineering. Dan is general. What expertise would you like to list for your technical advisory for the council?
Can I make a suggestion? Technical advisor on the watershed? More
Or
general.
drinking water or watershed, perhaps. This is not a question I've ever thought I was going to answer, so.
Been
You can
there.
also think about it, although Dan has come off mute.
Well, I just think we said, drinking water source protection is the,
Yeah, that's
what I want to
probably-
continue. So that seems the most focused
Yeah,
description to me.
Great.
Everybody okay with that title? Drinking water source protection, technical advisor? All in favor,
And,
say aye.
Aye.
There you are, Grant.
Yep, and Grant, send us your new email when you have it, please.
yes, I will do.
And Grant, just remember, you asked for this. Okay. Hudson River drinking water source issues, Chippy, the pro transmission line update. Steve Gliding from Department of Health, Hudson 7 contact for Chippy. I don't remember where I heard that.
Grant provided that information
Grant.
for us last month. And so I carried it forward, or actually in an email recently, just to confirm that for the Hudson 7.
Do we have it from Steve that he confirmed it?
Grant, do you want to answer that?
Sorry, what was the question?
So the question is, Steve Gladding confirmed in an email to the being a contact for DOH for Hudson 7.
It was
Yes.
Grant. Yeah.
Yes, so Steve Gladding is, especially with my impending departure, Steve Gladding is the point of contact for all questions and concerns related to the installation of the Chippy project in the Hudson River. And I believe I've sent out his contact information has been shared with you, Rebecca.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay,
I got your email, and I put it on the agenda. And Gary was asking if Steve had confirmed, and I said yes, and you've qualified that, so thanks.
The next item is the water testing and sediment study released by TDI. I don't have any information on this, so.
No, all that is, Gary, is just to acknowledge that the studies were released publicly. That's all. That happened between last month and this month.
All right.
And they were distributed, right? And they were distributed to the members,
Yes, they were
Yep.
released publicly.
right?
And
I got them in my email.
Rebecca, you have the EMSCP timeline, August 2023. That's just to memorialize that as well? Is that what we talked about last month, that process would be starting in August?
Yeah, so that's just a discussion for any updates. The start of just an agenda item to discuss. I don't know if Paul has any updates or Gary about the timeline, the time frame. You're all meeting with TDI now.
I believe that TDI basically said that they don't have a plan formalized by August of 2023. They were looking at the end of this year as when they're going to try to get that document out. And August of 2024 would be when they started the jet plowing.
Okay, thanks, Paul. So that's an item. So that's a headline. The items to discuss next are, Paul, you had asked about the Hudson 7 water operators, their plan during construction. And whether and who of the municipalities have either met with TDI to discuss or are planning to meet with TDI. These are your items.
Yeah, I understand that TDI has met with everyone except the Sopas. They met with Lloyd, Poughkeepsie, Hyde Park, along with Dutchess County Water and Wastewater, and Rhinebeck. I attended the Rhinebeck meeting, but I'd like to know what went on with the other meetings so that maybe we can coordinate some of these activities.
You want to go around the table? Is that what you want to do?
Yes.
Randy, were you at the meeting
I was at a meeting with the town of Poughkeepsie and the city of Poughkeepsie.
with TDI?
Yes.
Paul would like to have
Really, all they did was gave us the dates and gave a presentation. And supposedly she was going to send out the presentation to everybody, but I don't know that I got it. Did you get it? Okay. So
Dates
it
for
wasn't
what?
anything new.
do you have any comments or feedback, Jay or
You know, as
Randy?
far as like what they gave our board was basically a presentation to bring the board up to date what was going on. And I expressed still my concern with if something goes wrong. That was still my major issue, is that it's too much water to try to believe it's just still that pump with better. If something does go wrong.
Emergency plan.
Yeah.
And so are you working out a process for that or?
Yeah, I'm talking to her and we've been talking in-house, trying to figure out what we're gonna do.
Okay.
They keep telling us nothing's gonna happen, but.
Yeah.
We don't believe nothing.
They moved away.
Randy, you didn't talk about shutting down the plant or monitoring
We
the
will.
water.
We definitely are shut down. One of the things we need to look into is maybe how we can get samples of the plant without it running. So that's something I want to get. We'll have to get a small pump or something. I don't know. But we don't have that set up now. So we have to think about how we can get the samples during their test, during their installation. But we'll get it done.
And how about bringing it, having capabilities of getting water from, drinking water from other sources such as bottled water or tankers?
I thought that was going to be a plan for TDI to do. You know, we were going to ask them to provide that source water, and we haven't got a definitive on that.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, Paul, can maybe you could describe the Rhinebeck meeting as well. And I'm wondering, folks from Poughkeepsie, did you use the recommendations that Paul had put together after the pilot testing? Because there were, 6 or 7 bullets of that were meant to be able to inform that conversation. So I'm curious if they were put to use or if that's something you plan to do with a follow-up or what.
So at the Rhinebeck meeting, we definitely used those recommendations as part of our discussion and follow through with the action items. I didn't come prepared to go through everything that we did, but predominantly we said, number one, we're going to shut down. We want a 4-hour window, not a 2-hour window in terms of and notification. And we talked about then how that communication would work and who gets communicated, how that gets done. We also said that we wanted to be able to have real-time testing, not a delayed testing while they're doing it. Paul and my chief water plant operator are working through that to then give that proposal to TDI. We talked about, what else we talked? We talked about the emergency plan in terms of where we are and what we're doing. My chief water plant operator was very comfortable, with the plan that we have that Time Bond had drafted, and they are going to work together with them to TDI then to say to help us get the water if we need it. Right, it's kind of a different volume than what you were talking. That's in summary. We had about 7 or 8 items, so
the only recommendation that Rhinebeck decided not to do was to mark their intake with a float, and I kind of agree with them. They were concerned about security and things like that. So, just being able to talk to everybody, a lot of these things come up, like, is it really good to put bottled water on at each one of the town halls? And a lot of people have told me that would probably get people nervous if they see tanker trucks and whatever. And it was more like, let's make sure that they have water available at the manufacturer or at the tankers, suppliers location. So a lot of this communication has been extremely helpful to me, and I think to everyone, to get input from the operators.
we covered everything
Right, that's great.
in our meeting.
I agree that the best way we do it would be to find out where the sources are and have them on call. As much as we can.
Right.
That makes
And
sense.
TDI agreed to put everything that we suggested into the EM&CP process.
Yeah.
So they took all of our action items and said they would incorporate. Seeing it is going to be another thing. They agreed to do that. You're up, Russ.
In town of Lloyd, our supervisor met with them, with a council person, I think, and someone from the water department. I was brought in after the fact and wasn't happy about that. But anyway, they pretty much went through an introduction presentation, if you will, of what they're going to do for everybody again. They had pictures that they were showing them. And they wanted to know what our plan was for water backup. And it was determined by our people that we have 72 hours worth of water backup in our tanks or reservoirs and whatnot. So everybody walked away feeling like we're covered, you know, if there's a problem with some kind of pollution or whatever at the site. And that was pretty much how it left. If you'd like, Paul, I could probably get you the minutes if you'd like to see that.
Yeah, that would be helpful. I'd really appreciate it.
Yeah, it'd be
Sure.
nice, because if there's a common thing, we can then really focus on that.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot. I got an impression that it wasn't a lengthy meeting either. It was pretty informational and they wanted to get in, get out.
But ours lasted about an hour and a half.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I just want to bring up again those recommendations that Paul put together for everyone. And Russ, maybe those are something you can make sure the supervisor has if the supervisor doesn't already have them for a follow-up. Because like we just heard from Gary, it sounds like they can get incorporated into the EM and CP if they're communicated through this process. So
Mhm.
The one thing that hasn't really been discussed in great detail is that I had asked TDI to provide monitoring equipment, online monitoring equipment that would measure TOC, turbidity, pH, and any sort of gasoline products. And they were supposed to buy this unit, and it cost something like $100,000. And I really wanted to try to move that that piece of equipment from one site to another, and that's where I need coordination, or I need to hear we don't need that or whatever. So that's kind of where my question.
Yeah, so Paul, at our meeting, which you participated, you and my chief water plant operator agreed to work out that process.
Yes,
And communicated to TDI for them to implement.
correct.
My understanding was they agreed to do that.
Right.
And, you know, you had gotten all the information, but given that it's not going to happen for another year, it hasn't happened. But yeah, the schedule's coming where they're going to be more of a commitment to it. So maybe we need to get back with Jen and the team.
And
Okay.
at our meeting, we brought up the issue that it didn't seem practical to sometimes deliver it from Rhinebeck to Lloyd to Esopus to Poughkeepsie and have one unit, because there's not enough time at the speed that there could possibly be going.
Uh-huh.
So we were concerned about having just one unit and moving it. We didn't think that was practical.
Okay.
just to clarify, Paul, that would be the test for PAHs, things related to petroleum or coal tar, right? That we know are present in.
It's not going to accurately measure PDHs, but it's going to say that some sort of gasoline product is present.
Okay.
Or oil product.
And just for technical, it's going to be different for every site. We don't have a line running out.
Right.
That we can use. There's a line running out, but it's not usable. So for us, there has to be a way to get a line into the pipe to get it out there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's out far enough. And that was part of the process which they agreed to pay for.
Cool.
What's the equipment called?
Paul?
Is there a colloquial name for it?
I would just say it's the Hawk monitoring equipment is
For
basically
TOC.
it.
TOC monitor.
I've talked to Nick about it a couple of months ago, right, Nick?
Yeah, I think it was about that. What was the compound though, Paul? Outside of volatile and synthetic compounds, what compound are we talking about?
All we're going to be able to do, we're going to see it immediately. You know, it's not going to a laboratory. Basically, we're measuring turbidity, total organic carbon, whether it has oil products, and pH.
Okay. It was the oil byproducts, right? That was the expensive piece?
That's the one that I would recommend. If we don't do anything, that's the one I would recommend, because the only contaminant that came close to the drinking water standards was PAH, which is a petroleum products. So that's the most important one.
But I think if this installation is gonna necessitate repair, rerouting in the future if it's damaged. If it's a permanent installation, wouldn't it make sense to maximize the number of elements we're testing for, like turbidity, the TOCs, pH, as much as we can?
We didn't view it as a permanent installation. We viewed it as a temporary
But if
installation.
you're buying this equipment for all,
We asked TDI to come up with a plan of how to get it down through each one of the individual sites. We didn't think one was enough as originally suggested by Paul. Paul said move it site to site. At our meeting, we said we didn't think that was adequate enough to get it from Rhinebeck to the next site quick enough. So we asked TDI to come up with a plan and Paul to work with that on how many on that.
you
So
don't think it would be valuable to have?
we're not asked, we didn't ask for it. No, we did not ask, whether it's valuable or not, I can't answer, I'm not the. But my chief water plant operator and everybody on the board who's there said we didn't need it permanently.
Randy, with that, if you had what we're talking about here with Paul and Elmrose, would that have given you a heads up prior to the coal tar incident when you brought her into the plant?
Yes, and we have it now.
So that works.
What happened was after that coal tar incident, we had Central Hudson buy us that
Makes
unit.
sense.
So we have monitoring at our low lift right now for that. It's a pH meter.
I think it only makes sense.
Yeah.
This cable is gonna be maintained, it's gonna be rerouted. We know that it's got an age, it's infrastructure that will need to be updated, just like Central Hudson updates their gas lines. Why wouldn't we want that? And it could be used for other things to measure turbidity.
I'm not saying we didn't want it,
Release.
just Paul had proposed moving it. We didn't think moving one was enough, and that's where we left it.
Right, so we suggested that TDI buy ones for all the plants. And what I'm saying
You know, we
is,
suggested they come up with a plan for how many they need to adequately do the testing. For the sites that want it.
right,
I don't know, maybe I'll pick on Lloyd for instance, maybe they don't want it. I don't know. Maybe,
We're also,
right? So it has to be individualized, that's as we recommended. Every site should make that determination for what they want to need to do. Want a permanent, ask for a permanent. When you meet with them, tell them you want it. That's what I recommend. Because Randy doesn't need everything that we may need. He already has half of it.
Right.
That's how our discussion went. That's all I can say. So, we're good. So they haven't met with you guys yet. We got your, basically, we know from you. Lynn, were you, you were there, right?
Yeah, I think we were one of the first. And so I had the supervisor and Mike Keating
Mhm.
from DCWWA, and they were very cooperative, and they took notes, as Mike says, we don't know, you know, how closely they can watch them, because, for example, when the report came out, Mike didn't get it. And so he wrote to him again to say that he's actually the primary person, being that he's the owner of the intake, so to speak. So they were, Mike had some questions. He asked them to research, and they said they'd get back to us. They, the one thing that we wanted was communication, so that we know when they're coming, how,
Right.
and how it's going along the way. But other than that, I don't remember the questions that Mike asked because they're beyond me. But they said they would follow through. So it was actually a really positive meeting, about an hour and a half.
All right, so we got, Paul, anything else? Because we got a lot to cover yet. It's 6 o'clock already.
That's it.
All right. Shannon. Let's get into your agenda items here.
sure. Well, I did a quick draft that was circulated, I think, to some of you, and had numerous errors in it. But I think, Nick, you want to take everyone through point 1 and what we're suggesting the Hudson 7 do?
Sure. So point 1 for as far as suggestions go, we're looking for Hudson 7 so Hudson 7 unanimously objects to PSC condition 162, disenfranchising direct utility owner consultation and reducing public input from 60 days to 10 days.
So this would be a letter from the Hudson 7 to TDI.
I thought,
requesting
yeah,
these
I thought
things.
we all agreed last month that we were gonna, that, I think everybody was in agreement of that, and we were, and said I thought we said we would do that.
I don't think we voted on doing a letter.
I thought we did, but I didn't. No.
No, we didn't.
We didn't? All right. I know we discussed it.
We did discuss it. You were looking, you wanted to see the legal letter from Young and Sumner to see what was communicated because it came in a little late. So that is what was distributed this month, as well as a communication that had a list of things that Shannon wanted to discuss tonight.
I'm talking about item 1, the 6 days, this 10 days to 60 days. That's all
Yep.
I'm talking about.
No, I
Well,
understand.
I first think that we have, as Rebecca was saying, is we have to talk about the Young and Summers letter. And Gary, correct me if I'm wrong, when Rhinebeck met with them, Gary and I were very upset with this letter from Young and Summers. And when we mentioned it, Sean, who is their engineer, said he was very upset with this letter and that it really wasn't applicable to what they were saying. Basically, what they're looking for here is if they are unable to contact somebody who is in a utility that's interfering with them, that they be able to proceed. Basically the regulations say now that they have to contact everyone who they would be affected. Now, there's been some problems, for example, down around West Point, there is an intake pipe that's in the river. But this intake pipe was put in by a farmer in the 1860s, and TDI is unable to locate who owns it now and what it's going to do. So that's why they brought this up. The other item is about them not letting us have input to the EMCP. And they were just so upset by this because they have already agreed with us that they would work with the Hudson 7 to work on the EMCP. And it was not their intention not to give us any input. And as you can see already, they are doing that. Now, Gary, am I right on this? Or because it was
No,
kind of a
You did, you're right.
side note, but that's
Yeah.
what they told us.
They need to tell that to their lawyers then and have their lawyers revise the language of
Yeah.
condition 162.
Right.
I think that recommendation, we
Talked with them, that's what we told them to do.
Right.
Because they came back and said, we don't want to affect you guys, we want to talk to you. And then they used that excuse and it's like, no, well then just say that in what you're trying to do. Say that we'll work with others that we can contact. But yeah, and
But
they
in
said,
general-
they would do that.
Right, but in general principle, the
Right.
10 days to 60 days, 10 days is still too short.
Right, agree with that.
So I think we all said regardless, 10 days is too short. Right. So
Yep, we did. And Devin has a comment.
I was just gonna say, I think based on what they're saying now, oh, if we can't make contact with an operator or an owner, that I think is something that's pretty intuitive and easy to wrap your head around. It seems to me that the language that was chosen, the language that made its way through, was intentionally not that. And I don't know. That's all I gotta say. I just feel like it was not. I think we were getting had two different stories.
And it's my understanding, Devin, that they want to amend that language.
Good, they should.
So this is a letter that would first memorialize our objection to the current condition 162 as it's written, and could be phrased as a follow-up to conversations that we've already had.
To amend it, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So The letter to Esopus, however, was further proof that they intentionally wrote it the way they did. And so we really, need to memorialize in writing our demand to,
Yeah, from our conversations, I don't think that letter was directed at Esopus.
Well, they actually contacted Sophus and said, you guys are out the distance of ours and we don't have to deal with you. Right?
Yeah,
That's
sorry.
basically what it said.
absolutely. You did
And
not read the
that was
letter?
what really said, that's what they responded though to that
Is that
way.
the-
That's
is that
not
the letter?
acceptable.
No, I mean, I'm talking about the way they wrote their letter for the amendment to change the process.
Right, but the issue was, they told the Sophus they have no right to talk to them basically because they're outside the distance, which is not what they said they were gonna do to all the Hudson Seven. And that's the real problem. And that's a big problem.
And that's why I'm saying, I wish you guys would meet with them and then come back to us and say, we got this resolved, we didn't get this resolved, or this.
We've
resolved.
asked them to meet with us since last fall. Last fall, we invited them to meet with our town board multiple times.
Mm.
They did not want to meet in public with our town board. They wanted to meet with our town board in private, to which we said, we can't do that.
Right.
We're a municipality. If you want to meet with town of Esopus, it's one way or another has to be in a public forum by open meeting law.
Right.
We've been trying to have this meeting with them since the fall.
I don't know.
You don't
Yeah.
believe me?
No, I do
Yeah.
believe you. I don't, I'm not saying I don't believe you at all. I do believe you. I'm just astounded that they don't want to meet. That's all. Because they,
But it's my understanding that they were supposed to meet with the Sophus tonight in a public meeting. And I don't know who canceled it, but it didn't happen, obviously.
It couldn't happen because I'm here right now, and there was a conflict with me not being in the Esopus to have presence here at the Hudson Seven. So it was a very simple, and not only did we ask them, for this date, we put 2 other dates to them, the immediate next coming meetings, we asked them, could they do? It was just a conflict of me being here in Poughkeepsie and also being in Esopus. But
so
like I
so
said,
it sounds like you're
we've
working
already
through it. though.
offered alternatives. Exactly. So
Sounds like
this
you're
is-
working through it.
Of course.
Yeah.
So second point, the Hudson Seven member of town of Esopus be reimbursed for a minimum of $31,000 for engineering contingency plan, development and peer review of the Chippy pilot test and sediment results. Esopus was authorized by Hudson Seven to act on behalf of all Hudson Seven municipalities to take the lead and contract time bond for engineering services and reimbursement for this expenditure.
Does anybody want to discuss that? Are you comfortable with that? That Hudson Seven would be asking the town of Esopus be reimbursed because we've just received the draft from Ty and Bond, which is 48 pages that includes recommendations for the EM&CP. It includes detailed template for emergency response, not just 6 or 7 bullets that we quickly thought of, with Paul, but that all the engineers in Ty and Bond have been reflecting on. This is the kind of work that we would like to share with all of you so that Hudson Seven can benefit. And we're asking for Hudson Seven support to be reimbursed for that expense that we took the lead on.
Send you to take through that, since I was new.
Well, here's the thing. We're not asking you all to reimburse us. The condition was that TDI reimburse anyone expending any money for any study. So the money would come from TDI. All we're asking for is Hudson Seven to make that a demand officially that TDI live up to their obligation to reimburse.
I don't remember the language that Victoria used in terms of that condition. I thought, and this is just what I remember, was that you have the opportunity to submit for reimbursement. right? That opportunity was there, but wasn't a guarantee, right?
I will read you Victoria's draft that addresses this, because Young and Summer, Town of Esopus, our infrastructure in all of the maps and all of the documentation showed TDI's projected path crossing our infrastructure. So just like it did with Poughkeepsie in between the two intakes. So based on that information, we took action to have our engineer study the impact to us, okay? And that was always the case until, and so based on that information and multiple discussions and it being documented, we commissioned this work, which we discussed here at a Hudson 7 meeting that we were going to take the lead on because we were concerned. In the Victoria's letter, it says that, and it's not just in her letter, it's part of their requirement. TDI is obligated to reimburse any municipality or co-located infrastructure owner for any expenses that they incur in reviewing any documents, in commissioning any necessary work. They were obligated to reimburse us for this expense. This
So
is
if they're
the
obligated,
minimum.
why are they not?
They were
Because-
refusing because 1 week before our last meeting, they sent a boat out to adjust in the mapping of where they were their path was projected to go. And they changed at the last minute. And then on the day we showed up here, they had already sent a letter that stated that they had just decided to move the path of the underwater cable to be outside of the zone. And therefore we didn't have any, they didn't have any obligation to consult with us, that we were just like any other member of the public, and that they will not reimburse us the
So
$31,000 for
does-
engineering.
That's the discussion we had before. What is the work zone? Because they were always,
I know that's
they were
the-
160
that's the same
feet.
question
Yeah.
you called our attorney 2 days before we got that letter asking. You asked our attorney.
What is the
2
work
days,
zone?
What is the work zone, and that you didn't believe Esopus was in the work zone. And then
No,
on
I
the,
didn't say that.
that's
I didn't say that.
No, you were using the same language in the Young and Summers letter, casting doubt on whether Esopus was in the work zone.
And as I shared, I'm
With
not
the
gonna go, I'm
letter
not,
that we
all right,
got.
we're not gonna go through it. Listen,
No, you called our lawyer
I,
quoting
yeah, I
the same
called,
language that Young and Summer
I called
used in their
Victoria
letter rejecting
on
us.
multiple things, and she brought up the subject about the letter. And I said, what is the definition of the work zone?
No. This
All
was
right,
2
that-
days before we got the letter, that she got the letter. 2 days before she got the letter, you called using the same
And
language,
as I said, because,
asking her.
let me finish. Will you let me finish? As I said, because Jen, I was calling Jen to set up the meeting. She
Okay.
brought it up, and I mentioned this, and I told everybody this. She mentioned this discussion. I said, I don't understand what that is. I called Victoria on another subject, and we went into
So it was
this
a discussion between you and Jen talking to you about what was coming to Esopus 2 days later.
She didn't explain anything, no, to me, and didn't have any clue what was going on.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? Just a pragmatic question? Gary, is what you're asking, so there was a process in order for you, for the town or for any municipality in the Hudson 7 to be able to proceed with its own engineering study or perhaps testing up front. So you had to front the funds in order to do that. And then, on the back end, be reimbursed by TDI. So that process, did you need to have standing first, Shannon, in order to
No,
be able to proceed?
no.
So I think that's the question, is that process and,
It was part of the certificate of condition 29 that we had talked about before.
You brought
Yeah.
it into the meeting.
We brought it into this meeting.
thanks.
That indicated that any infrastructure owner had a right to request reimbursement of TDI for any expenditures up to a reasonable amount. It was very vague, but it was very clear that we were entitled to that reimbursement and that we were acting in good faith, given that our infrastructure was being transected by an underwater cable, to commission engineering from our engineer to study how that would impact us. And not only that, our engineer has done a comprehensive review of the pilot test results, of the sediment test results, and gone into great lengths to analyze what kind of emergency plans and recommendations for the EM&CP that would benefit all Hudson 7 members.
So
Um,
the
I just
question
wanna-
I asked, oh, excuse me, the question I asked was, if they are obligated, as the words you've used, why aren't they paying it?
So on
You
the
tell us.
20th,
I don't know.
It's in this
So
letter.
Devin's in the, has his hand raised. Devin?
I just wanted to say, I recall when I read through the letter that was shared from TDI saying that they are not going to reimburse the town of Esopus. The reason that they gave was not because the activities that they were requesting reimbursement for were not compatible with the permit. The reason that they are saying they are now not going to reimburse the town of Esopus is because, according to them, the town of Esopus is no longer an owner of co-located infrastructure
yes.
as of a few days before that letter. That is a decision that they could make to any one of these members. I think that they should be grandfathered in. The work that was done, the work that they had done happened while they were owners of co-located infrastructure. Because they changed their plan, that's great that they changed their route. Who wants the cable right over an intake? Nobody. But the fact is, they didn't do this work while they were not owners. They did this work while they were owners, and I think that they have a right to get reimbursed, and that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Thanks. And that was the issue, right? So it
Right.
just seemed coincidental that at the time, TDI was asking for, they really wanted to nail down the GPS, locate, and then Will from TDI was talking about building potential mats over the intake, which had Paul Melrose and I, instantly grabbed our attention because I didn't want anything directly on top of the intake. But that was the train of thought at the time while we were kind of doing this and going a little bit above and beyond trying to figure out what this means. And then to get this letter on the 20th of April saying just that, definitions of what a CI is, co-located infrastructure, what the owner is, and then just flat out tells us that based upon the current project design, which is now outside of our intake, the town of Esopus water intake structure is not within the project's current construction zone. And they.
So we designed the pilot to be 106 after your site, which is 160 feet, which happened long before that.
No, they designed it around our site. The
No, we used
distance
the
away,
Esopus site, 160.
the distance away was designed around our site,
Okay.
yes.
No
But
problem.
the thing is, what they did in good faith was you're gonna be on our intake, we need to investigate it. So we investigated, now you move it outside and you're saying we're not, you were in it. I think it's worth a letter. I think it's worth a letter from the Hudson 7 saying, hey, they did everything in good faith, you owe them the money, pay the bill.
Yeah.
And
I'm not
I
objecting
don't
to
see
that.
why I don't see why they wouldn't pay. It's hardly
$30,000 or
anything.
whatever is nothing to them.
Yeah,
It's
so why are
completely
they
simple.
doing something so stupid?
I don't know.
To piss off, but it's a mistake to do what they're doing. Yeah, I support that we would send a letter saying pay them.
Okay, so that was,
Did you appeal on your own or?
yes,
just
I
we
think that
We
You have
did
to
send
act
a
on that?
letter already to the PSC, specifically calling out what was done. We did send that letter to them, and it was sent very recently because they just had a meeting today. So we can share that with you,
No, I was just wondering,
but
once they told
we
you
would
no.
like your support as well, because
No, I just want to know what you did once they told you no. Did you immediately call them? and
We
argue it?
did. we absolutely did.
Because to me, it sounds like, I wouldn't use the word bait and switch, but it sounds like you were doing the homework and just because they moved it, they took you out and then they should at least call right away and say, we'll pay them where you are, we're moving away.
But they had already done the
Thank
work
you.
and then they decided to change it. That's the problem.
Yeah.
They said it's gonna be here. We do the work to get it, pay the 30,000 to get it done, and then you move it. And now you say you shouldn't pay. That doesn't make, that's not
Because you were
appropriate.
doing the homework.
Right.
You said how, do we know where they moved it? How far they
So
moved
on
it?
the map that they supplied with their email, there's not,
Looks like it's 50 meters
I mean,
to east.
So that's like 150 feet or,
Yeah, so it's not exact, but you can see it's clearly not where it was.
And the-
even
so they
just a
moved
few
it
weeks,
150 feet away from your intake.
or
So-
thereabouts.
So now
Yeah.
you're 150 feet away from your intake, is what you're saying.
Well, I'm not saying 150. I don't know exactly where I'm at, but it's
Well, if they were on
certainly not
top of
where-
your intake
right.
and they moved it 50 meters, whatever that 50-meter distance is, that's the distance they're away from your intake now?
Approximately.
And that's another point, right? That it's been moved kind of back and forth, and I don't know. I don't think anybody knows. I can speak for my intake. I don't know exactly where they were even wanting to build a mat or a bridge over it. Or now where exactly they want to put this route. So I don't want to guess and say 150 or, but yeah, it's further to the east than where it initially was, which they, obviously say that now that does not make you, so you're not a CI owner anymore, but they do recognize us as a public water system and send a nice paragraph towards us about that, how they do recognize us. But yeah, it's a lot of work to do, with intent of projecting towards a route that was adjusted right at the last minute when we had already kind of played around with it.
So I think my only question was in my mind, I thought we had designed at 160 from your site, because that was the definition that we had. I didn't realize, I forgot that was the case.
At the time when they were having the problem, they had us going over our intake.
Right.
And so we didn't really have a great handle on where they were gonna put things, but we all knew that we were gonna be impacted.
Right.
And Yusopis decided they wanted to go out and hire an engineer to really understand better than they felt we were doing as Hudson 7. They hired him,
Mhm.
and it was a good faith effort to protect themselves.
Mhm.
And now TDI says, forget it. That's wrong.
I just want to clarify too, with the pilot test, the distance was 160 feet.
Yeah, I think about that.
So it's very interesting that the distance was 160 feet in the pilot test. And say right now it's 150 feet total from crossing over our intake to where it is now.
Right.
It would seem that we meet the definition of co-located infrastructure.
And that's what I don't know what it is. And Paul, hey, Paul, you were actively involved in designing the pilot. Do you remember how the 160 feet came about?
The 160 feet came about because Randy and I insisted that they not cross their intake. So they moved it from 160 feet from Randy's intake. And then we said, and that supposedly was the closest intake. So that's what we used for the pilot test. But I'd just like to say a few things. Number one, this letter from Young and Summers, Gary and I were really upset with them, and they totally changed their thinking. So I think this letter has to be clarified or rewritten or whatever, because Gary and I didn't hear that from Jen or Sean, and they were pretty upset with this letter. So I don't know what went wrong, but I think we got to go back and ask them for clarification on this letter. And I think Asopa should be reimbursed. I don't care what, whether they're in the zone or out of the zone or whatever. And basically, I think that the report is probably going to be to TDI's advantage, to tell you the truth.
So
All right, so we're,
next point, next point would be that Hudson 7 unanimously reiterates that the EM and CP consultation is not complete per your letter of whenever you sent them the letter in March, that Hudson 7 does not consider the EM and CP recommendations complete until Ty and Bond Engineering report, or their peer review for it, has concluded, and their findings and recommendations and the contingency plans are all shared and communicated back with TDI, which you've already stated in another form, but we would reiterate that. And then the last part would be town of Esopus be reestablished as a utility like all the rest of you within the, with a requirement to consult with us. And then finally, notwithstanding the pilot test and any other tests that we've seen, we strongly urge the rerouting of the cable, because in an ideal world, we wouldn't have to deal with this cable at all. And if it's all possible, to please reroute the cable, which is what we've been asking since the beginning.
We've all said that on every meeting.
And so we would reaffirm that strong request. So that would be the gist of this letter to TDI from Hudson 7. We would then follow and make slight adjustments to state basically the same 5 points to the PSC and crank out an almost identical letter to the PSC reiterating these same points to TDI that we just reviewed. And then we would copy on our letter to the PSC, the Lieutenant Governor, Antonio Delgado, the governor's representative, Hinchey, congressional representatives, relevant assembly representatives, county executives. Basically, we would copy all of the public officials so that we brought awareness to what our requests are to the PSC, and that they're looped in and can help facilitate any negotiation with PSC or discussion we have with them in the future.
I'd suggest East Opas write a letter
That's what
for
they're
us to sign.
We have done that already.
Good.
Okay,
So you
good.
need to circulate that. so
Yeah,
we
it
can all-
circulates that so we can
Yes,
approve it and then
yes.
send it.
Shannon, I'd like to just ask, what is your law firm doing as far as this goes? If they're suing them for the 31,000?
Oh, God, no. We are now just sending a letter to the PSC request, explaining what happened and how that's not right.
Right.
And that we,
Which is why I would think you have your lawyer go after them to pay you.
yes, our lawyer has written a letter already to the PSC and to TDI to try and get the reimbursement going, but we have not had any response from either party. So that's why we're asking.
I don't want us to
support.
be redundant or maybe even create a legal error for Silvis.
No, it would only help us to reaffirm what we've already asked.
Okay.
Yeah. And then, so that would be the second letter to the PSC. And then finally, our lawyer has drafted a template of a memorializing resolution for all of you, because Poughkeepsie, city of Poughkeepsie, and I guess town was included, has now obtained legal standing as a party before the PSC. Just like town of Esopus has, we have obtained legal standing so that if anything does go wrong and there's a contamination or an incident, we're a party to the action. We have a right to legal recourse, etc. So we recommend that City of Poughkeepsie has already done this, but we recommend Hyde Park does this as well, and Lloyd does this as well. It's a very simple process, and our attorney has drafted a template for you guys to use to make a board resolution that you will seek standing to protect your municipal water utility, and that it includes kind of some verbiage that you can use when you go to input and make your request to be a party to the action. Okay, so that Hudson 7 passed a memorializing resolution to protect its member rights, and that's what this template is about. That's the next thing I'm asking, you guys to look at. And then finally, Senator Hinchey's office called. They said they want to facilitate discussion between the Hudson 7 and the PSC, and to please come up with some questions about, that TDI can answer, that the PSC can answer, and that they can have a productive dialogue between the elected officials, the PSC, and Hudson 7 to answer all our questions and concerns. So my thought was to have all of us brainstorm. We have already come up with some questions to ask TDI and PSC and have that dialogue, and we'll circulate those to you, and would just ask that you all contribute your own questions.
All right, so there's three things here. First is the letter. Draft this letter. You're gonna make a motion to Town of Esopus, draft a letter, send it out to review for approval.
Correct.
Right. I have a second.
But I still would say you should ask for reclarification on this Young and Summers letter, because this is trash, this letter. And it should, all the people at our meeting with Rhinebeck said that this letter was not accurate.
So hopefully.
So let's get it clarified.
But Paul, hopefully Esopus will put that in their draft letter for us to review. Right?
It mentions that.
Okay.
Something like that.
All right, so let's get it out to review. Do I have a second? And then we
Yeah.
can review it. But we have to vote on the letter then. So we can't move ahead until we have a chance to review it.
Well, no, you would authorize us. We already have drafted it.
Right.
But what if there's feedback and comments and suggestions, and how do we handle all of that?
We'll incorporate any feedback
Yeah.
from you guys.
So we've authorized
It's
you
your
guys,
letter.
we've asked you guys to
Draft the letter.
draft the thing, send it out, and then we can approve it, the final at the next meeting, June,
Right.
which is,
That's what
we just can't do it tonight is what Gary's saying.
Oh, okay.
We'll do it, but we just need the draft to review and then we can approve it.
Yes.
So
The
everybody.
other
has to
thing I
do
would
is get back,
request
get
is,
to you.
I'd like to see the tie and bond report. I think that if the Hudson Seven's going to support Esopus to this degree, we should be able to see that report.
I agree. I agree.
It's gotta be foilable anyhow, right? Could foil it probably.
We're
yeah.
looking for your support.
Right, and
Of
that's
us,
not
and
a game.
We will
Yeah.
support you. Absolutely.
Right.
That's what we're here for.
Right.
All right,
So-
so we got the letter. Second thing was the letter to, what was the second thing? The PCS.
The same
PSC.
type, the same letter,
The
substantially the
PSC.
same to the PSC.
So you'll take a rerun at that and
Yes,
bring
we
that
have
and
that
set
too.
that on review. We'll do the same thing for that, bring it back
Gary,
in.
we didn't finish the item number one, which was for Town of Esopus to draft a letter, send it to the Hudson Seven for approval at the next meeting. Is that the action for item number one?
Yes,
And Shannon motioned, you seconded, and was there a vote?
No,
well, I was gonna kind of get all three of them moving forward here. There's
I'm
three
just
at a
putting it
time.
all in the communication, so we're keeping track of it. So it would be good to,
Independently. All in favor of the first one, say aye.
all right,
Aye.
Aye.
Evan's here
Second
too.
one is, the second one is the same kind of letter, but to the PSC,
Copying all the.
copying all the other
officials.
ones. So it's the same thing, get it out to review, make a motion to write that letter. I have a second,
yeah.
Randy seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Now, the third thing was what now? I'm lost it.
The third thing is just a memorializing resolution, which if Poughkeepsie's already passed it and Esopus already has standing, then it really would be for the town of Poughkeepsie, possibly Hyde Park, you as Rhinebeck to become party to the action. We are strongly urging all members to become parties to this action
Yeah, tell us how to do it.
before the PSC.
Just tell us how, that doesn't have to be, that's up to municipalities
Right.
to do, not a vote for us, that's individual.
Right. But
Just
if you
tell us how to-
provide it, then we can get it to the
Tell us how to do
officials to
We
do
will
that.
circulate that as well.
Devin has his hand raised.
I was just gonna, I just wanted to clarify in the document, it says resolution to protect its members' legal rights. I would just wanted to clarify that we say municipal members as appropriate, since this doesn't really apply to Ulster and Dutchess as much. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Yes, this was a draft.
Yep.
Yes.
Right, and so now Devin will have to get in front of their legislator, Amanda needs to get in front of their legislature, all that kind of stuff.
That's right.
Right.
So we'll send you the template.
Good.
Thank you for doing that, guys.
Okay, anything else?
That's really it to be voted on, other than we'll circulate the questions and then
Good.
you guys will add.
Okay,
Look at that. Good work,
we'll
everyone.
move on. Esopus Creek. Paul?
Okay,
Let's go, it's 6:35, so.
yeah, do it in 5 minutes. DC Ken Kozinski called me up and asked me for the raw water turbidities for all the plants. So Ben Gannon and I did that, and we also included the data from Norrie Point, which is, like in Hyde Park, you guys know where it is better than I do. And also turbidities just downstream of the Ashokan Reservoir. Everything kind of showed that all the plants in Norrie Point had the same turbidities. The turbidities just south of the Ashokan was very close to what was happening at the discharge. We also did the one at Albany, which showed very little increase in turbidities compared to what we saw at all the plants. So our basic conclusion is nothing came from the north, so everything must have came from the Esopus. And I haven't heard back from them, but I thought it was pretty clear from the data we got. So I'd just like to thank everybody for getting the data to me.
Thanks for delivering it, Paul.
Yeah.
That was going to be helpful for the seeker process.
Okay, so moving on, the last meeting, if I remember right, we voted and approved to draft a resolution to send about Indian Point. Okay, this is it. It's here. We haven't sent it yet, but today just recently, I saw an email from the state with a resolution for every municipality to also pass, to oppose it. Has anybody else seen that? I'd have to go pull it up from my mail.
What is that question, Gary?
So I also saw something from another resolution from somebody, and I thought it was somebody at the state level proposing a resolution similar to this.
Yeah, they've been going around. Counties and municipalities are passing resolutions.
No, this is yeah, I know. I passed a resolution as well a long time ago, right? But no, this was something new that just came out from the state based on the legislation that's going through now. You haven't seen anything?
Has
There's
Brian
amended legislation that no longer focuses in on the waters of the state, but is very specific to the Hudson River. So there have been changes to that, and that has been noted in this resolution by not speaking to the waters of the state, but very specifically to the Hudson River. So the resolution is in support of the legislation ultimately, which is currently making its way through committee. And we use this language so that it's up to date, Gary.
Okay. All right. So does anybody have any objection, since we haven't done it yet, on this resolution?
Sounds good.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. I have no idea what this next item is.
Let's take a look.
The CAG PCB 5-year.
Muted.
You're muted.
The Hudson 7 was interviewed by CBI, the consensus CBI, the acronym. They are the consultants for the EPA as they look to invite members, partners that are in the lower Hudson now as we ramp up for the 5-year review study of PCBs in the Hudson River with a focus on the lower Hudson. And so we were interviewed. I'm sure the Hudson 7 is going to get an invitation to sit on the community advisory, the CAG, the community advisory group. But in the meantime, the EPA has agreed, and it's a letter too that the Hudson 7 was a part of, to do outreach, more public outreach on the upcoming 5-year review. And so the link that's here for you is an event that they're hosting that's occurring next week. And they're going to start talking and getting people ready for the 5-year review and what will be a lengthy public comment period this year. So that link will take you to the event, and we're encouraged for as many of us to sign up to go. It's remote, and it's from 6 to 8 p.m. next Wednesday, the 24th. That's it.
Okay, thank you. That ends our new business. Is there anything else anybody needs to bring up?
Was there a reason why John Lipscomb was on the thing?
He was originally going to talk about the storage, but the Coast Guard comes in
Anchorages.
next month,
Mhm.
and so it's been moved.
Okay, because we had a meeting with the Hudson River Safety Group. And the Coast Guard came in and talked to us, and they talked about the changes that are being done with the anchorage. Because it's still not done, but they've come back and said they can take areas around our intakes and call them as restricted areas because of the intake. And they're looking that maybe that might be ways that we can protect our intake better. So I thought John was going to talk about that more, but that's what the Coast Guard's leaning towards now. And it's just an advisory.
So Commander Singletary is coming next month to discuss the anchorages. And John will be on that call too. So we'll have a good conversation and be briefed on that proposal.
And I think Randy's comment was, John was on earlier, was there something else that he wanted?
Oh, I heard that. I'm just reminding, just putting a period.
Speak with Commander Singletary, and he indicated that it's a long process for all of us to get that restricted zone status around the anchorages, but that he would be willing to walk us through the process and talk about that.
Right.
Kind of what you just said.
Yep. So it's coming up, but it's nothing to be worried about at the moment.
Yeah.
Okay,
All right, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn at 6:40.
great. Second.
Russ, second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye.